So everybody knows about the burning of Notre Dame, and this is just an admission of embarrassment. I actually have to admit, I didn't know that that's where the relic of the crown of thorns was. Did you guys know that? Okay, one person over there. So I didn't know that, but it did make me think, well, I'll tell you this. Do you want to know where the relic of the true cross is? Because we had that at one time too. And it was it was moved to Constantinople. And before Constantinople fell, they were afraid that it'd be captured and desecrated. So they took the true cross, broke it into 1,000,000 pieces, and sent it throughout the world. So in various monasteries, churches, cathedrals, there is a relic of the true cross. The closest one for us would be in Mount Angel, Oregon, at the monastery. And I like that image, that that's a place where the true cross is hidden. But I want to go with this. Tonight's ceremony of venerating the cross, what we're hoping is that the true cross is hidden in us. And the cross, like the theology of the cross, to be honest, I made a mistake. I should have had an adult ed series just on the image of the cross, because the cross can mean a lot of things in Scripture. If you study Scripture, the cross is a wedding ceremony. I've already explained that a couple years ago, so check it out. But no, it's a wedding ceremony where we're committing ourselves to love. It's actually image of a birth. If you know the Old Testament symbols, Christ is the mother, and what's getting born is our true humanity. The cross is actually, in Scripture, a sign of victory. You don't get it to the very, very end. Love to preach on that. It is a sign of victory. The cross is also the doorway back into the Garden of Eden, or paradise. The Scripture starts off with us being expelled from the garden. How do you get back? And a lot of the Scripture imageries that I love is how you get back into paradise. There's one door, and it's the cross. Love that theme. But the theme that I actually just want to talk about is actually the cross as commitment. It sounds strange, but I've been praying about this because I was talking to somebody who's non-Catholic, and they were saying, their position was, I don't see why we have to make these commitments. And my argument was, love demands commitment. To truly get to love, you have to be committed to something. And so there's this story, true story, of this guy a couple decades ago who lived in China, in Shengpang, I forgot the province. But at the time, the Catholic Church is getting suppressed. And there is a priest, and the priest would come to his house to celebrate the Eucharist. And this underground church would go to the house to celebrate the Eucharist, and there was a police raid on it. And the police, when they came, everybody scattered. But the guy who owns the house, there's nowhere for him to run. So he's taken into custody, and for 3 weeks was tortured with electricity and burning. And all he had to do is name where the priest was hiding. But he knew that if he gave up the priest, there'd be no more Eucharist. The community could fall apart. And so he didn't reveal it after 3 weeks of torture. He didn't want to betray the community in the Eucharist. And so, really, amazingly, after 3 weeks, they just let him go. Now, he was willing to suffer that. The odd part of the story is then he gets a chance to move to the United States. And he's living in the United States where, in this amazing thing, the more you work, the more you can earn. So he really starts to work hard and starts to work on Saturdays and then on Sundays. And oddly enough, he found himself, I forget what it is, like a year, that he stopped going to Mass. And the amazing part of his story is this, you couldn't torture the faith out of him, but you could seduce it out of him. He makes this great comment that, we're not living in communist China. And that's the problem. We're not living in Nazi Germany that's suppressing the faith, and that's the problem. Sometimes you get seduced into walking away, and that's what's important about commitment. Or, the play Hamilton is very popular. Haven't seen it, but I know a couple lines. In one of the lines, Hamilton is arguing with Raymond Burr, and Burr says, let's test the political winds to see who's winning, and then we'll commit ourselves. And Hamilton says this line that if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Great line. Now, commitment, here's just one more story. It's called the Milgram experiment. I know I've talked about it before, but the Milgram experiment was a psychological experiment where they took these people, random people, and they said, you ask questions to this person. If the person gets a wrong answer, you give them an electric shock. Now, that person can't really feel it. They're an actor. But the test was how many people would give the electrical shock. And each time you had to keep turning up the voltage until finally you'd give such a voltage that it would kill the person. And they would tell them, okay, now if you go back to this, it's going to kill them, but you have to turn up the voltage. And you have this actor begging and screaming out in pain, begging them to stop. And all you had was somebody in a white lab coat telling him, nope, you have to do this. And the percentages were really shocking. It's hard to define because where on the scale do people stick in and say, no, I will not do this? But the sad part is, it's a small fraction who immediately stick with their no. It's about 20% of us who will say, no, I will not harm another person. I don't care. Shockingly, 50% of us will give an electric shock that would kill somebody simply because we're told to. The odd part of the experiment was this. People may say they believe in love and kindness, but their commitment wanes. They will follow whatever authority figure is in there. So my point being is this. Where does the true cross live? Tonight, when we venerate the cross, all of us will come forward. You can venerate it however you want. Some people touch the cross. Some people kiss their hand and then touch the cross. I like kissing the cross. Other people simply bow. But think about this whole ceremony, not just as a ceremony of recognizing the door into paradise, the door in which our true humanity gets born. Our unhuman parts fade away, die with Christ, and our true humanity gets born. It's a ceremony of commitment to love. But most of all, for me, it's a ceremony of commitment. In a world where 50% of the people will only follow whatever authority figure, 20% say that they're committed to something and stick with it. I love the veneration of the cross as a ceremony of commitment, that I follow Christ, and I can't be seduced out of it or tortured out of it. I love that image. So where does a true cross hide? Yes, around the world, but tonight we're praying it hides in us. The doorway to heaven, the symbol of victory, and true commitment is part of our lives. And so, together, let us stand and offer our prayers.